Welcome to The Voice of Retail. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc. This podcast is brought to you in conjunction with Retail Council of Canada. In this episode, Mountain Equipment Company CEO Claus is back on the podcast, recorded live in person from the MEC Vancouver boardroom. We catch up and talk about the incredible journey of turning the business around during the COVID era, the innovative partnership with Hudson's Bay, and putting the heritage back into this modern retail brand.
And just look at, what made you come out of this stronger and better, and focus on those things going forward, and don't sweat the stupid stuff. I think we all spent so much time sweating really ridiculous things, and COVID just by definition shrunk a lot of businesses for quite a period of time. And it kind of shows you what's important.
Yeah. And how fast you can make decisions too, right?
Yeah,
once you do that, right?
You're moving every day.
Eric, welcome to the Voice of Retail podcast. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you, Michael? Welcome to rainy Vancouver.
Well, I'm thrilled to see. This is the first time we've actually met in person. We are here in person in your boardroom, so thank you for hosting me. It's wonderful to be here.
My pleasure. Good to have you here and the whole RCC crew in town.
Yeah, the whole crew's in town for the Retail West happening tomorrow by the way the date falls. So looking forward to that. Lots of great stuff coming out of there. And you're going to be joining us for at least some or part of the day?
Yeah, I'll join for a good part of the day.
Fantastic. Well, we got a great day planned. It's actually a fantastic, Ken Keeler from Calgary Co-op and Sarah Jordan from Mastermind kicking it off, and on it go Christine Day. I'm interviewing Christine Day on the stage at the end, so that'll be just a pile of fun.
You got a great roster.
We got a great roster. We're blessed that way. So listen, this is not your first time on the podcast. I think the first time you and I spoke, at least for the podcast, was shortly after your arrival at MEC. But for those who maybe didn't hear the first episode, or maybe haven't been paying attention, who are you? What do you do? And tell us a little bit about your backstory.
My name is Claus, and I've been a retailer my whole career. I spent probably about 15 years in the U.S., mostly supermarkets. Ran A&P Canada, which was also Dominion A&P Food Basics. We sold that to Metro. Ended up in the U.S. running a few chains there, and then in 2017 I pretty well semi-retired and went on a 3-year adventure with my wife. The Caribbean, hiking, biking in Alaska. Kiteboarding in Aruba, and ended up living for a big part of big part of the year in a town called Las Terrenas in Dominican Republic. Then, interestingly enough, in 2020, I came back to Nova Scotia, where my home is, and got a call from a fellow that I knew, that I've known for quite a while, who's the founder of Kingswood Capital. Who told me that MEC was in trouble, which I had trouble believing. Everybody loves MEC. Sure. And I'm a big outdoors guy, so I've been a member since 1984, and it was shocking to me that it could even be in trouble. Fast forward, and I joined them, invested in the business with them, and we bought it, and it's been it's been 2 years now, and we haven't looked back.
Well, and I've got an audience that is both in Canada and around the world. So spend a bit of time talking about MEC. What is it? What do you sell? What makes the story original, and what makes it remarkable?
I think MEC is really special because it started as a co-op, and it had a 50-year legacy of being just the go-to place for outdoor gear in Canada. Always a pioneer in ESG, pioneer in e-commerce, known for, the best technical product, and absolutely known for the best service in the industry. So people that really, that live the purpose. So you have a lot of people that work at MEC that could be doing a lot of other things, but just, for them, it's like working in a candy store because they're passionate outdoors people. They're climbers, they're bikers, they're kayakers, they're the serious outdoor people. And, it's like, when I speak to the staff in the stores, I always say, we don't need to sell. Just impart your knowledge, and that's what they do. So, there's also, it's been a buzzword for so many years, but, the omni-channel buzzword, it's part of the DNA at MEC. So you guys
were an OG. We were talking off mic about how when I was launching Hudson's Bay in 2000. The people on the stage with me there weren't many, but MEC was one of them.
Yeah, right? For sure. I mean, it's been part of the business for a long time, and it's very natural. You'll see it in the stores because there's a lot of things that you want to go on the web. You can't carry everything in the store, so you'll go on the web and they'll be with members and say, look, if I don't happen to have this kayak, well, this is what's your mission? You're looking for a low profile, fast sea kayak, 16 feet. Maybe that's not something that I have in the store, but I can get it for you really quickly. So. And the same goes with the online consumer that's completely interfaced with the stores. And we probably have one of the highest percentages of people that shop at MEC that do both online and the bricks and mortar.
I was talking with a good friend of mine, and we were asked why we were successful in e-commerce at the shopping channel. And I said, it doesn't happen overnight. We were doing it for 10 years, like culturally in the organization. I think there's a time on task. We've been doing this for so long, it becomes part of the DNA. I know a lot of organizations try to inject that DNA, but really it still needs time on task. I mean, it's hard to rush it. Would you agree?
I think that's true for a lot of things. Even our label product. MEC has been doing it for 50 years. We're reinventing things that were done 30 years ago. The Apex jacket or the Rad pant, which you'll see, somebody in their 60s wearing the Rad pant, and you'll see a 20-year-old wearing the new Rad pant with the new colors. Right. So I think there's a lot to be said for things that are ingrained in a business's DNA, and I think. If I look at MEC, just social responsibility, the environment, the good things that MEC stands for, they're not marketing things. They're real. Our staff are completely involved and give of their time and for our members, it's extremely important. Sustainability in our product. Right. Sustainable sourcing, Blue Sign certified, fair trade. So all of these things, they're not, things come and go. And for a lot of people, they'll look at these things and kind of use them as a marketing advantage. It's not a marketing advantage at MEC. It's really just
what you do. It's just what you do.
It is, yeah.
Just what you do. I've lost track a little bit, a number of stores. I know when the business got into trouble and then was now private equity owned, part of the reason the selection was made was we're going to keep a lot of the stores open as opposed to slash and burn. Now, what's your store count?
21.
21 stores.
Yeah, and there was only one store that was shut, and that was really because it was kind of a cannibalization of sales. And then we've opened 3 since, shop and shops with the Bay.
Yeah, I want to get to that a little bit later about how that came about. It's interesting. I think you've done something that very few people have done, and that's change a business from being a co-op, mountain equipment co-op, to being a company. Talk about that experience. I mean, of course, you were in trouble financially, so that was, of course, an impetus. But it seems to me, from the outside looking in, that could have been a very rocky thing with the members. I mean, it's a heritage brand, right? Change is not always welcome. Talk about how you managed that with the making members into continue to be diehard customers. How did you manage that transition? Well, and during COVID?
Yeah, we had everything going for us. So I would say that in buying the business, that was the number one risk. I had a bit of an advantage over anybody else looking at MEC, the co-op at the time, in that my very first job as a CEO was actually CEO of Co-op Atlantic, which was a co-op in the East Coast. I think it doesn't exist anymore, but so I kind of knew the ethos that goes with a co-op, and when we looked at this, I knew that we would get a lot of bad publicity, and usually it's not many people that are very opinionated in a very loud way. What I said to our investors and what I said to our teams also is, look, let's forget about the noise, let's forget about media, and let's just do what's right. That's the most important thing with everybody. So if you take 97% of people that are members, at the end of the day, what's really important? It's not what you say, it's how you conduct yourself. And when we bought it, first of all, I could say to the media, as I could say to our staff, that, we weren't part of the problem. We're part of the solution.
Right, we're here to save the business.
Yeah. And we were the only ones that really stood up and said, we'll take the risk and we'll keep pretty well all the stores except for one open, and keep people employed.
How did you know to make that commitment? Was that a going-in commitment that you thought would be helpful in managing the transition, or was it legitimately, these are great stores and we need them as part of the business?
Legitimately, these were great stores. And the problem with MEC was never the actual store performance. The actual store performance financially was good, was excellent, right up to their bankruptcy. The issue was, excessive capital spend in store infrastructures that were, more than what was needed in an office that, housed 630 or 680 people for a business this size. That's a lot. It's really a lot. So I think, and again, I don't want to criticize anybody, and I think that they had a board of directors that are very well-intentioned people. So I don't think anybody intentionally did something wrong, but they fell upon hard times, and then couple that with the pandemic, it was not recoverable, and that's where we came in. And for us, I told the people in the media when we bought the business, I said, come and talk to me in a year, and then judge me. And a year later, we actually went and did a bit of a media tour and spoke to the media and said, here's our report card. We've invested, after the first year, we've invested $1 million in communities and sustainability projects. We've kept through the pandemic most of our senior staff employed. We actually went from shipping most of our e-com purchase orders from distribution centers to stores so that we could keep people busy while the stores were shut. So we did, we completely reinvested in teams to go to the outdoors, and we pay for it, use our gear and go train. We put a lot of energy into DE&I. We did, the things that the co-op was known for. And, what was really personally rewarding for me is visiting the stores, and I'm very close to the teams in the stores. I walk around. I'm in the stock rooms. If they're stuck with a shipment, I'll help out in the back room. That's just, look, I started working in stores, so it's something that just comes naturally.
Speaking of DNA,
But people, they would say, we really liked working for the co-op, and we love working for you guys, and that's and they're our best spokespeople. So our membership today, because we still have members, although we have a lot of work to do to get a real good loyalty program going. We're not there yet, but it's bigger than what it was when we got the business.
Well, and it's interesting because you had, at the one hand, you had a tailwind for demand coming with and around COVID for certain commodities, but you still have to have the inventory to sell. So the supply chain challenges, I'm sure, were fairly significant. So it wasn't like a cakewalk turning that business around, right?
It's worse than that, Michael. When we bought the business, remember, it was in CCAA, which is the Canadian version of a Chapter 11. So all purchase orders have been canceled.
Right.
So there were no POs. There was less than half the inventory that was required.
Lots of other retailers clamoring for that inventory.
Right. And supply chain completely broken. So we really started off, as much as the pandemic was a tailwind for the outdoors, it wasn't a tailwind for MEC because there was no product.
Right.
So
there was nothing to push.
No.
Let's talk about, you recently announced and have executed a partnership with Hudson's Bay. How did that come about, and talk about your objectives and strategies there?
Well, there's someone I'm sitting across that actually...
that was a bit of a self-serving question, wasn't it?
That was actually, it was pretty interesting because I think you were on vacation skiing in Banff.
Yeah. And
you pinged me and said, Eric, why don't you talk to Ian, who's the CEO of the Bay? I'll put you two guys together. It would be, I'm sure he has excess space. It would be great to have a MEC as part of the shop. It would just make sense. Two iconic Canadian retailers. And it was interesting because we said, well, I was talking with Ian, and we talked about Banff and said, well, that's probably not the most ideal of stores. But Ian said, look, we've got spaces in stores, and you guys are completely complementary to the Bay, and the Bay has such a long history, and you think of MEC and you think of outdoors and canoes, and it's kind of like it's a nice marriage. And in terms of product, there's no overlap. So the Bay doesn't sell anything that we sell, and vice versa. So Ian and I started the discussions. We got our teams on it, and we looked at some potential locations, and we really moved heaven and earth to get this done quickly. And on top of that, we were also in the Bay marketplace.
Right.
So, their e-com business, which has really grown over the last year tremendously. So we opened the first shop, which is about a little less than 7,000 square feet in the Queen Street location. We opened one in Square One. That's probably north of 10,000 square feet, and then one in Yorkdale, which I think is about close to 9,000 square feet.
So far, so good. I mean, the execution. I stopped by the Square One; it looks fabulous. So.
Yeah. So the arrangement that we have with the folks at the Bay was, it's so important that the MEC experience really is the MEC experience. So it can't be just product that's sitting somewhere, because our experience. First of all, our product is quite technical. People need to be, they need to be walked through their purchases, because many of them, they're looking at what are the attributes of, technical product for the outdoors. Yeah. So we agreed that they would really be MEC stores. So it's the MEC POS system. It's our staff trained. It's really a MEC store within the Bay, which makes it legitimate. It's good. It's about where we expected it to be. And obviously, any new store that you open takes time to mature. It's got to grow. So we're good. And look, we really pushed to get it open in conjunction with Bay Days, which we did, and just ahead of the holiday season, where we know we'll benefit from just a ton of traffic, which is the best advertising that we or marketing that we could have to let people know that we're there.
Right on. That's a good segue into talking about people. And when I talk to retailers across North America, people now is their number one issue: finding, keeping, growing talent. It's supplemented supply chain and kind of around the boardroom table. You do an amazing job. You've referred to it about finding these passionate people, but talk a little bit more about how you maintain and grow that culture and find it. I mean, you don't seem to have a challenge finding people to work in your stores. Is it that kind of integration of passion and purpose and what you sell?
Yes. Now we had our issues like everybody just coming out of the pandemic, because we managed to keep our more senior staff, but obviously a lot of the more junior part-time
had to get furloughed or whatever.
And they end up just going places. But
it's actually I talked to a lot of retailers who had the opposite. They lost their managers, their key holders, because the stores. So you held on to the senior people.
We did.
And had them filling orders or doing whatever, right?
Right. And we kept everybody really engaged. We still had our weekly management meetings with the stores, and we put a lot of energy into it. So we put on our list of kind of key pillars for the business, we always put people first. And we, first of all, we're fully staffed. We're ready for the holidays. There's not a store that we have issues. We are completely staffed across the board.
Amazing.
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. So we also do regular engagement surveys. We have one of the highest engagement rates in retail in the country. We actually, there's certain things I can't talk about, but there's some good news things. I can talk about a couple, which is one of Canada's favorite employers. We ranked as Canada's number 8 most trusted brand in the country. So all of those things, it's kind of reputational that really help. And then we spend a lot of time first of all, we spend a lot of time selecting. So we have, people in the field. We're very, very picky about people that we choose. And then we invest in everybody. We invest heavily in training, more training than I've ever seen in retail. And by attracting people that love the outdoors, our staff discount is very good. We pay for our staff to go out and do excursions, so they're
experience the product.
Absolutely,
because you makes a better associate, better salesperson, and more knowledgeable. That kind of thing, that hands-on thing.
It's really investing in people. So you have to invest in people, and like if you're an outdoor store, you've got to hire people that like the outdoors.
Right. Right. We're sitting now in some kind of quasi post-COVID retail era, reflecting back on the COVID era, past couple of years, and not necessarily just running this business, but in general. Anything strike you as something that's going to continue, a permanent shift versus a kind of a response, more of a structural change, either the way customers shop or the way you run businesses? Have you changed the way you think about supply chain? Are you less? I've talked to retailers say, listen, we have to be more agile. We will make different decisions, sometimes sourcing decisions. Anything that sticks with you just as a veteran business operator that you think is different and could stick around and continue to be different in the years to come? Did anything happen during COVID that just didn't go back to the way it was pre-COVID?
It actually surprisingly went back more than we ever thought it would to retail. So many people were discounting the bricks and mortar, and post-pandemic, people just wanted to get out, and they're back at shopping. So I think that really being able to tie in that online and bricks and mortar shopping with your customers, that they're not separate, that they're really one business, that I think is here to stay. And I believe that retailers that can't marry those two together in a really effective way and be able to very quickly move. There are going to be things that happen in the future that will make that people may be afraid to shop, for a period of time. It's just the ability to pivot, I think, to move.
Do you think organizations, on the whole, retailers are it's a strange thing to say, but better off from the experience? I've talked to some retailers who say, listen, we went through what we went through the past 2 years makes us more resilient, more agile, and better able to handle the day-to-day stuff than before COVID.
Oh, definitely, 100%. I mean, if it's like any individual in life, if you haven't gone through some tough times, you can't be 100% as effective as somebody who's really been through some tough times, because it teaches you some good lessons. It teaches you that you have to be disciplined. You have to be ready for I mean, if you went into the pandemic and had a lot of inventory, no cash, you're probably not here today.
Right.
Right. So I think a lot of financial disciplines, but I think also a lot of just human nature kind of things that we've learned about each other, about almost about teamwork, about everybody working from home, but you still have this trust that people are doing their things. It was.
Is that different for you? Would you have run this business with so many people working at home pre-COVID? I mean, it was
Never.
Not a tech thing; it was a cultural thing, right?
Yeah. No, we totally. Everybody was working in the office before, and with COVID, everyone went 100% remote. There was nobody in the office.
And you wouldn't have hired someone remote to be a director of marketing?
No.
Would you today?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's certain jobs that you still, and there's a benefit to being in the office. There's camaraderie, and I see it from, we have a very young team in this office, and they enjoy being together, but they also, the other thing that happened, this is interesting also, being in Vancouver and being an outdoor business, we have a lot of very active people. We have over 50% of our people that bike to work 52 weeks a year. But we had a lot of people during the pandemic move away from Vancouver. So they moved to Squamish for the most part, which is, about
not a bike ride here.
45 minutes by car. Yeah. But they're in the mountains, they can hike, they can bike, they can kayak, they've got the ocean, you've got the mountains, you're living in, the nirvana of the outdoor world. So for them, it makes a lot of sense. Driving in for 3 days is not such a big deal. Driving in for 5 days a week is a big deal. The other thing that's happened just from a traffic point of view is that since not just us, but most businesses are now some kind of a hybrid work from home environment, the actual traffic levels have gone down. So you have people that are, so the traffic levels go down. It makes it easier, and you're only doing it 3 days a week as opposed to 5 days a week.
Do you envision a point where you get people together outside the office environment? Are you conceiving of more team building outside of the office environment? Or do you think what you do within the environment works
I think what we do, but we always do things. You know, we continually there's always something happening at MEC. There's there's a climb up. You know, it'll be merchandising taking their team up and doing, or operations taking the team up and doing the grouse grind, or
the grouse grind.
So here, like it's just part of the nature of this business too.
Your business built for the situation. What does innovation look like here? You have your own product, amazing product, which in and of itself is techno and innovative. But as you step back and think about innovation in the retail business at your level, what does innovation look like? Less about telling tales out of inside baseball, but more about how do you approach it? You got a whiteboard and you say, okay, where are we going to be in 3 years? And what are we going to be doing that's different or the same? How do you think about innovation?
Yeah, so innovation in our business for the most part is product innovation. You know, are there things that we can do from a technology point of view in the stores? For sure there are, but we're such a hands-on kind of product. It needs nurturing. So, and I can tell you that whenever we bring in the store managers to Vancouver and we bring people together, the one thing that turns everybody on here is product. And that's our business. So that's where we really put, where we put our energies into innovation are really in product. And our teams are doing like very cool stuff. Like the other day I was looking, they're building a tent that weighs for backcountry backpacking that weighs like 11 ounces.
What? 11 ounces?
11 ounces, so you use your trekking poles. Those are the posts for the tent. And,
so interesting.
And we do a lot of work in fabric, finding innovative fabrics, working on new zipper types and waterproofing. And there's just, it's a lot of fun. And as you walk through our office here, you can see we're in a bit of a renovation in that we are actually moving our label team from an outside office back into the office because that's, and they were kind of afraid. They're like, Eric, we're really loud. We make a lot of noise where there's stuff all over the place. And I'm like, well, that's our life. That's what we want. We want to see you. We want to hear you. We want to touch and feel that product. We want to see the new webbing on a backpack. We want
the rest of everybody here isn't benefiting from that excitement or interests. Spoken differently, right?
And then from a technology point of view, I don't think we would be considered the most innovative, but we completely blew up the technology platform. It was just a mixture of a lot of things, and we've really streamlined it. So from a technology point of view, it's about better forecasting, better buying,
more visibility in supply chain, I guess.
100%,
stuff like that. Right?
Yeah. So we new e-com platforms, new ERP system. I wouldn't say that we're Amazon leading edge, but we're very forward thinking. Even our office, everything's in the cloud. There's almost no paper in this office, and
I didn't see anyone I was walking through.
No, and everybody's got stand-up desks, and they're all they're booked in advance, and it's kind of a hip place to work.
Last question for you. Advice to your fellow retailers listening, and what do you think they should leave behind after the COVID experience and as they look forward? Is there anything that you said, listen, this was kind of something that most retailers did that they should just leave behind and move on and do something else? What's your piece of advice?
I don't know. I don't like to give other people advice because I think there's a lot of people that are far more talented than me. But I think you kind of got to you sort of have to look at the COVID era as somebody who had a near death experience. And you came out of it, and then you look back, and I think every retailer is going to be different, and you're going to go, wow, I got through that. So what was really important? My people. People are the number one thing. So understand your people, take care of your people, figure out what's important to them, and just look at, what made you come out of this stronger and better, and focus on those things going forward, and don't sweat the stupid stuff. I think we all spent so much time sweating really ridiculous things, and COVID just by definition shrunk a lot of businesses for quite a period of time, and it kind of shows you what's important,
and how fast you can make decisions too, right? Once you do that, right?
You're moving every day, every single day. The stores open, stores close, can't get product. There's a million things going on. So be nimble, be quick, take care of your people. Because they're the ones that carry you through. At the end of the day, it's everything else is bricks and mortar. Really, it's interchangeable. People aren't.
Wise advice. Thanks so much for spending time with me on the podcast. It's great again to meet you in person. I'm going to go take a look at the store and do a store check because I love checking out remarkable retail stores. So, Eric, thanks for joining me on the Voice of Retail podcast. A real pleasure.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning into this special episode of The Voice of Retail. If you haven't already, be sure and click and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so new episodes will land automatically twice a week. And check out my other retail industry media properties, the Remarkable Retail Podcast, Conversations with Commerce Next Podcast, and the Food Professor Podcast with Dr. Sylvain Charlebois. Last but not least, if you're into barbecue, check out my all-new YouTube barbecue show, Last Request Barbecue, with new episodes each and every week. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc, president of MEC LeBlanc Company and Maven Media. And if you're looking for more content or want to chat, follow me on LinkedIn or visit my website at meleblanc.co. Have a safe week, everyone.